Hey guys, I want to take you through a quick tutorial on how to use Garageband for your audio documentaries. I'm having some technical issues and unfortunately I'm not able to get both voiceover and sound from my iPad to work on the same video. So I'm going to have to give this to you just sort of talking you through it. However, if you have questions, I can show you in person, and I do still think that this will serve as a good example for you. So when you open up GarageBand, if you don't have any songs started or projects started, this is how it'll open up to right away to choose your first instrument. Everything in GarageBand is called an instrument. The only one that you'll be required to use is going to be the audio recorder. That's what you'll use for your podcast. However, if you wanted to experiment with making your own music for the background, I think that would be great, and there's plenty of opportunity for you to do that here. But first you need to add your first track, which is this instrument, the audio recorder. And once you bring it up, there's a couple settings that you need to change in the default. First off, you want to turn this metronome off. This blue triangle icon up here will turn off the click track, which can be very annoying. Well, will be very annoying if you accidentally leave it on. You'll know that for sure. You can also press the plus sign here, and this is crucial, where it says Section A, switch that to automatic. That'll make sure that it keeps going indefinitely and adds an infinite amount of length onto your recording so that you can get your whole interview and narration in there. If you don't change that, it's going to cut you off at 8 bars, which is not good. The other thing that I want you to be aware of, unfortunately you won't be able to hear it, but in settings here, and I think it's a good idea to leave it on, but this says count in. And that's important because that'll go, it'll click in 4 times, it'll go click, 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 and then you'll know to start recording. If you don't do that, you may not, some of your stuff may get cut off, so it's nice to have that click track there, so I do recommend leaving that on. Those are the only default settings that you need to mess around with. If you find it, the other thing you'll see here, the meter going up and down with my voice, those are your sound levels. So where it is right now is pretty good, but just make sure that when you're setting up to have an interview, for instance, that it's in a spot where everybody can be heard by the recording. That's really important. Okay, so all the default settings are good, and now in order to move on, you just need to record anything in order to get the next set of menu. So when you press the record button, it's the big red button. The click is going to happen, but you can't hear it, but you're going to notice that up by the 1, 2, 3, 4 up at the top, 1 through 8, it's going to start turning red when the recording actually starts. So you'll hear the click usually when you're recording, and then you'll see the red, and that's how you know that it's actually recording. So I'm going to press record. And there you go, and you can see that red there. And then just stop this. And that brings up this next set of menus. A couple things going on here. Right next to the dial, you've got small room, large room. These are all different effects you can put on the vocals. I don't recommend doing that. If you want to play around with it, if you are done with your project and you've got some spare time, go ahead, by all means, make yourself sound like a chipmunk. But if you're still working on your project, please don't mess around with the voices because it's a waste of time. Okay. And up at the top now, you'll see new icons between instruments and the recording thing. That little curved arrow is undo, so that will undo the last step. Next to it, that's blue, is the instrument menu, which is what you're looking at right now. And then right next to it is the editing menu, and this is where you'll be spending most of your time in GarageBand. So let's click over and take a look at what it looks like. If you've used iMovie or Pro Tools or anything like that, this should look pretty familiar. It's the same sort of philosophy behind it. You've got different tracks. The tracks go over each other. They record over each other. So this will allow you to do background music and to have multiple things going on at one time. So with GarageBand, what I'm going to recommend is that you have sort of a dummy song that's set up where you're recording all of your interviews. I've got one made up that I'd like to show you just so you can see sort of what it looks like. So I'm going to go back to my songs. It's going to save it automatically, and then click on interviews. So what I am going to recommend that you do is you have a different track set up. So on the left-hand side, each of those microphones is a different track. You can press the plus button down there to create another, just press audio recorder. And then anytime that you see this again, you could start recording right away, or you can go back to editing. There's a couple things that you do need to know. So you'll notice here that I've got the audio recorder right there up. So and then it starts at the bottom, then Nora's interview is there. This marker up at the top that you see me moving right now, this is really important. It determines where you start recording. if you're recording more tracks onto it, if you have, so let's say you won't be able to hear it, but say Nora and this first interview with me are going on at the same time. If I played that, you would hear both Nora's and my voice going on at the same time, which just sounds like a nightmare to me. So you don't want to have these things going over. Anything that's at the same time like this is overlapping. So when you're recording more tracks, take this marker and sort of set it to the end. So you've got my voiceover right there, and then let's scroll over more to the end of it. Whoops. And it's a little finicky, but you can get there. And then just move it all the way to the end. And now if you press record, it'll record onto the end of it and it won't go over anything else. So let's say that I'm going to now interview Leo. What I want to do is I want to select, so on the right hand side, select this new track. So you want to select the track so I don't accidentally record over anything, and I can keep them all separate and keep them organized. Make sure that the marker's at the end of it so that you're not recording at the same time as other stuff and it's confusing, because you'll hear that too when you record. So it'll be pretty clear if you did something wrong. And now you can just press record. It'll automatically switch over to the end of the, it'll automatically switch over to the instrument view. And as you can see, the recording there started at 19 instead of 1 because that's where you placed your marker. So it's recording right now. Pretend that I'm interviewing Leo and it's super boring and you're just kind of waiting for him to stop talking. And he finally does, and you press stop. And it has recorded. You can see that because it's blue up at the top now, starting at the 19. But then you need to switch back to the editing mode. And then you've got those different interviews here. You can see it sort of cascading down in steps. This is a good way to keep track of it. You could, if you wanted to, just keep recording it onto the next track. However, I think it's a little bit easier to organize this way. Some other things that you could do is you can rename the actual track. So if you click on it, well, let's do this. Let me show you first. So I think that it's easier if you keep the tracks named. So let's go, I'm going to click on the microphone on the left-hand side here, and then you can rename this. It already is named Kevin, so this is me. The next one is Nora. So press done. And now let's name this one, rename. We're going to name that one Leo. Okay. And you can also rename the tracks. As you see here, I named Nora's track. Let's call this Nora 1. Or let's say, even better, you know that this is the Nora track. So let's say that you asked her a question about her first school dance. You could name it First School Dance. Oops, sorry, I pressed cancel on accident. You could name it First School Dance. Press done. And now you know exactly what the things are. So if you wanted to go back and add another question for Nora about some other embarrassing moment in her high school experience, you could add it to that same track. I think it's going to be crucial for you to keep a well-organized sort of cache of sounds. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot more work for you. The more work you do up front to keep this organized, the more likely it is that the actual product is going to be easier for you. So you can go through, you can have all these be different interviews. As long as I've got this open, if you look on the left, there's the speaker with the X through it, and there's the headphone. If you just wanted to say, if you had them overlapping and you wanted to listen to one or the other, you can press the X and that'll mute it. Or you can press the headphones and that'll preview it, so you'll only be able to hear that one track. Really, though, if you are doing kind of what I've asked, or what I've shown you, rather, sorry, I can't get the, there you go, and you're recording them one after the other and you're moving that marker, you shouldn't have to worry about the muting and stuff like that. One other very important thing, make sure that you've actually moved the track when you're ready to record, because if you do have the marker over something else and you record over it, it's going to record over it, and then you'll have both sounds going on at the same time, and it'll be really confusing. If that happens, you can press undo, and it'll undo it, but let's hope that it doesn't get to that. So really that's how I think that you should go through and record your interviews. Set up a new track for each person you interview, move the marker. If you think that moving the marker and recording it like this is silly because you're familiar with using muting and familiar with previewing, then you can go ahead and do that. However, I think that this might be a little bit easier for beginners. So you've got all your interviews in here, you've got all of your stuff ready, and now you're ready to put this thing all together. So go back to My Songs, and that'll save it. And we're going to create a totally new project. Again, turn the click track off, make sure that it's automatic, all that stuff. And you got to press record again just because it won't let you get to that editing bar without it, which is silly, I know, but that's how it is. Go to the editing thing, and now you've got a totally new thing. This is nothing. What you may want to do is rename this track to narration. Done. And then what you can do is you can go through and you can start doing your intros and stuff there. You can go through talking about it. I'm going to right away, just to keep myself organized. Did that not? There we go. I'm going to go back in and just kind of show you what it would be like. So I want to add in Leo's interview. There was, actually, you know what? He talked for a long time and it was pretty boring. So what I want to do is I want to find the interesting part. This is where it's confusing and you won't be able to hear me preview it, and I'm sorry, but you can also pinch to zoom in and zoom out. Let's just say that I've listened to this a couple of times and I know that the interesting part of Leo's stuff starts right about there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the marker to right before when that starts and click this button that says split. A little scissors is going to show up and you actually have to physically move the scissors down and that'll clip it there. And I know that Leo starts being boring again right about there. So I'm going to split this as well. And now I've got a smaller section, and you're not going to use your entire interview from people that you talk to. Or you're going to want to talk in between it to set it up, as we've listened to in some of those podcasts. So when you have it, you can simply just copy it, click it, copy. Then you can move back to your project, add a new track, just new audio recorder, find where you want the marker to go, you want it there, make sure you're on the right track, then you can just paste it. Does it carry? Yep, it unfortunately doesn't carry over the name of it, so when you get it in again, you can rename this as Leo. I press cancel again, but you know what I mean. So now you can record an intro for it. I recommend wearing headphones for this if you've got them so that you can record, otherwise if you go over, but as long as you're on this, and you've got the marker set up, you probably would want to record your narration first and then move it in because you don't know how long you're going to be, but you can also preview it too if you aren't quite sure. What else? So also, once you're ready in your final project, if you want to add, could be where you add music or something. You can do something like this where you play different chords and stuff in the background to create your own songs. Otherwise, you can also import music as well, but I'm not going to get into that on this video here. So that's something that you'll want to look into on your own. I recommend to use mostly natural sound. I think that that's going to be the best. Don't bog yourself down with a bunch of background music. I think that the natural sound is going to be better. If you do add a guitar track, it'll just show up like that. So it won't be the microphone, so you'll be able to keep track of that being music. And I think that's pretty much it. You're going to do a lot of switching back and forth between your interviews and your project song. If there's a smaller piece, so let's say that you've got this from Leo and you don't want to split the track, but because you're not going to use stuff in the beginning, you can move in the beginning and the end of a track, and that'll just crop it, and that'll make it smaller. And again, you can just copy that, go back to your project, and then make sure you're on the right track, and then you can paste that as well. So like right there, I pasted it over the other one, so you want to make sure that you have enough space. So probably add it out afterwards. If you wanted to have both of Leo going sort of at the same time, where you have two voices going on at the same time, just make sure that you've got the other thing like that. And now it'll sort of fade over and overlap a little bit, which makes for cleaner editing. I think that that's pretty much the basics. I know it's a lot of information. Again, I'll be here to help you. This is a long video, and I understand that, but hopefully this will give you some ideas of how you can put together your documentary and get you started. So I hope this was helpful. If you have questions, ask me or Nora or Leo, and Leo will ask me. But I hope that you have fun with this, and good luck. Thanks.